Hello, everybody, and welcome to 3-Point Perspective, the podcast about illustration, how to do it, how to make a living at it, and how to make an impact in the world with your art. I'm Jake Parker.
I'm Lee White.
And I'm Will Terry. And all three of us are professional illustrators, and we've all been working for about the last 25 years. We've worked with just about every publisher in the publication business, and we've published somewhere between 50 and 100 books between us. And Lee likes to clear his throat.
You can't hear that. Don't start your little banter over there. We're individual. I can clear without affecting you.
All right. And I'm Will Terry, and all three of us are professional illustrators, and we've all been working for about the last 25 years. We've worked with all the major publishers in the business, and together we've published somewhere around 50 or 100 books, and we've all taught illustration at universities.
Every week we come up with a different topic in illustration. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we argue. Every time you are going to learn something brand spanking new.
Or not.
Or maybe not.
Depends on your experience, I guess. No guarantees, but I don't know. This episode should be interesting. Will, what is your, oh my gosh.
There's an Ted Cujo is in Jake's studio.
I would leave that in. It's okay to have real life, you know?
Yes. Well, yeah.
I don't know why we always strive for this perfection to create this fake world that we don't actually live in a house with other people and dogs and people that ring the doorbell.
Kids home from school.
With the endless summer that's happening right now through the pandemic, right?
All right. So let me ask you, Will, you want to just take it away? Lead us down this path of where we're going to go today with the topic?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was thinking, this is one of the few times where I did not get my podcast idea from either an email or from the forums or from a DM or something. Mm-hmm. I was just thinking it would be fun for us to talk about dreams, our students' dreams, people that are taking our SVSLearn.com classes, and what it means to dare to dream big, and just basically have a conversation around why it's good to dream, why it's good to have big dreams, little dreams, moderate dreams, and big, grandiose dreams. I'm going to make an argument that having amazingly big, huge dreams is good for you, at least by the end.
Okay. So let me ask you, what's the problem that you're seeing with people?
That's a good question. I think in general, artists, we've grown up in a world where, let's face it, we grow up in a world that is academically focused, English, math, science, and parents, I think, secretly always dream that, their kid says something like, I want to be a doctor, or I want to be a lawyer, or I want to be an accountant, or I want to be. I know that there are a lot of great parents out there that understand that to have a child that is doing something they love and is fulfilling, that the money is secondary, that the most important thing is that they're focused and that they, just want to be a really good contributor to society. But I think most parents, secretly deep down, they might not vocalize it, but they're kind of hoping for that doctor. Don't you think?
Yeah. Well, I can tell my own experiences. My dad still brings up that I should have been a brain surgeon.
Oh, really?
Even now, with their level of success, he doesn't.
He doesn't say go. It's time to pivot and go to medical school.
But he wishes you had something.
No, he'll just say you have such good hand-eye coordination and you're so smart. Like, why couldn't you be you could have been a great surgeon.
That's such a parent thing to say.
Yeah.
Like the full-on backhanded compliment sort of thing.
Well,
you could have been something, Jake. You really applied yourself.
To his credit, though, he's been extremely supportive. He's never said I shouldn't do what I'm doing. But but like Will says, I mean, there's this aspiration, this wish element to what you want your kid, what you think your kid would be good at, what they would do. And so I think that does play into, it plays into, I think, everybody's psychology as they pursue a career. Like, there's on one hand doing what fulfills you, but also on the other hand, not letting down your upbringing, right? And the hopes and aspirations of two people that have, your parents, if you were raised by two people or one parent. And for those of you who have no parents, I'm going down a
test two babies.
But they've put so much resources and time and money into you. You do want to honor them, I guess, to some degree, right?
But wouldn't most parents just really, I mean, I think most parents would be happy just having a successful kid. I mean, I don't think it has to be a specific thing that they're successful in. I mean, I feel like my parents would have been happy as long as I'm reasonably successful in what I'm doing and I'm happy. So.
Yeah. Would the parent, let's say you're a failed doctor, like malpractice problems, all kinds of things. Would they?
Right.
Would they
but you're a
still
doctor, so you get the pass.
Right.
What about the idea that we tie making money into success? What do you guys think about that? That like you could be a great artist, I mean, really good, and not making any money, or you could be a mediocre artist, but you're really good at marketing yourself, so you're getting work. And so person A's artwork is much better than person B's, but person B is getting paid for it.
I'm going to pivot on that setup a little bit, and I just wonder, what would everyone's work look like if money wasn't, like, say, I'm going to go the full-on socialist route. So say we're in, because Will loves socialism.
You got UBI going on, right? Like, and a lot of it, right?
So if people they didn't have to worry about their career. Say a doctor made the same amount as a baker, and made the same amount as a ballet dancer, as the same amount as a painter. What would everybody be doing if everybody got a stipend of the same amount?
Right.
And nobody cared what you did. You got the same amount. I just wonder how the artwork would change, and how people's personalities would change, and lives would change, because a lot of it, at least in capitalist kind of society, is about chasing the dollar, and a lot of people don't feel validated unless they're making money. I mean, I feel like there's so many people who want to quit their job and become a professional, not realizing I don't want to say shackles, but there is some drawbacks to that as well. It seems like it's, talking about dreams today, a lot of people idealize their dream.
Right.
And then the problem can be, I'm going to play devil's advocate against the going for your dream. Because when you get your dream, what do you do next? I mean, you see it for all its warts and all its, right, the downside of it. And sometimes having that idealization is really good. If you see sports stars, when they retire, they have a tough time transitioning, because they had this big dream, they achieved the dream, and then that's what their identity is, and then they get past it, and all of a sudden they don't have an identity anymore. So
right, it's a good thought experiment, Lee. And I've had this one with my sister. We've kind of argued this exact question: would people in mass, would people achieve as much as they do without the incentive of making more money by picking a career that makes more money? I guess is essentially what you're saying, right? So would we still have the same distribution of careers? Would more people try to paint or make art? Would we have enough doctors? I know my opinion is we wouldn't. I think that there's enough. You give someone you give everybody the same amount of money, and then you say, we need doctors, so some of you are gonna have to go to school for 10 years. But if you don't want to be a doctor, you don't go to school at all. You could be an artist. You know what I mean? Or you go for 4 years or something.
It's a valid point that all things, some things are a lot harder to get to.
My sister thinks that we'd have the same distribution I don't think we could possibly have the same distribution. But some people love healing, being a doctor. And so I think some people still would. I watched an interesting documentary a decade ago or longer, and they were interviewing. It was actually a child from the Johnson and Johnson fortune,
Yeah.
who he was like a great grandson who made the documentary, and he grew up with all of his friends were rich kids. Did you see it, Jake?
I saw it too. Yeah. About 10
Okay.
years ago.
Yeah. So all of his friends were rich kids that he grew up with. I mean, and they were all the who's who of,
Yeah.
American
All these
capitalism.
Hamptons hanging out.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Rich people.
So he interviewed his friends, and some of them didn't want to be on camera. And he's like, what do we do with our lives, basically, because we all have money, and are you planning on doing anything important with your life? And a lot of them were partying, and they didn't want to be interviewed. But a few of them, like he even interviewed his dad, and his dad was a very accomplished pianist. And his dad was like the grandson of the fortune, and his dad was told, you just have to do something really worthwhile with your life. We as parents expect you to become something great with your life. Pick anything you want. And he did, and he became a great pianist. And I was also thinking of Rashida Jones. She comes from, she's a famous actress, and she comes from a family fortune. And, if you might remember her from like The Office or Parks and Rec.
Was she in The Office too?
Yeah, she was in the office.
Not as big a role, but she was definitely on some of the seasons, the later seasons.
There was a guy that I went to art center with that this conversation reminds me of, he studied motion graphics, and he left art center with a big skill set. He was really good. Got hired immediately, worked for 5 years at least, and was making making more than almost everybody else I know out of art center as people were gaining traction in their careers. Just motion graphics pays a lot, and it's it's still heavily in demand. So he was able to transition really quick, and then he just quit and became a doctor. He just was not fulfilled as a motion. He was fully successful in his career, and he decided to go back and start.
Well, we have one of our students at SVS. What's her name? Her last name is Chekoli.
Don't say people's names online. You can't.
Well, I've interviewed her on my podcast. I'm so bad with names.
Simona?
Yeah. She is a research scientist.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, accomplished, great job, research scientist, and decided that she wanted to illustrate children's books.
Is she still doing the research stuff?
I'm not sure right now. I think I don't think she is. I think she's gone. I think she's left it behind and gone full on into.
Her parents are probably super happy about that choice.
Well, I think she made good money.
That's what I'm saying. And then she take the good money thing and throw it away and go to children. You are not increasing your income in any stretch going into what we do.
From a research scientist? Well, you might. I mean, there are some that have.
It's the exception to the rule, though.
True. But anyway, this whole line of thinking has really always been very interesting to me.
I just want to interject too. Like,
go ahead.
I have friends who have gone on to have lucrative careers doing, banking and things like that. And they'll come to me and say, not that, I don't know if there's an element of jealousy or just admiration or something for me to have really stuck with and followed something that I was passionate about and figured out a way to make that work financially as well. And I don't know if there's like a hint of regret in their voice or if there's, I don't want to call any of them out because they're successful in what they do and certainly happy with their lifestyle. But I think there's always like a grass is greener on the other side because They look at some of the freedom that I have and me really spending a lot of time working on the things that I am absolutely in love with doing, but they don't see, like the fluctuation in pay that I have.
Right.
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 And here I am, like, really enjoying my day-to-day work that I do, but I look at, a nice vacation that they've gone on. I look at, the zip code that they live in, things like that, right? Where it reminds me of the quote. I forget who said this quote, but it's when bankers and investors get together, they talk about art. When artists get together, they talk about money. But I think that's a good question. Like, if you didn't have to worry about money, what would you work on? What would you pursue and focus on as an artist? And I think with the times that I've done that, where I have set aside, like, maybe trying to chase dollars and instead chased passion, there's been times where that's really ended up paying off. It was a slow burn, but
Right.
but it was like it's and I don't know if I want to give that advice. I feel like there's so many elements in it. Like, you have to be good at it too. Like, you can't just be like, I want to be an opera singer. You
Right.
can't hold it.
Well, that's
You
what
know,
that, I mean, that angle is exactly what me and my wife call the American Idol problem. It's like,
Yeah.
for every one really good singer, you got 20 people who think they're great, and they'll go audition, and they can't believe they even get rejected from that first round. That's always the funny ones to watch,
Right.
because they're so bad and they can't hear it. And that's why it's scary, because, like, if you're listening to, if I'm listening to Bono from U2 say, oh, you should just follow your dreams. Well, he's the 1%, of
Right.
musicians that achieved a career in music.
Okay, so that brings up a question: with is singing a good comparison to drawing? In some ways, it would be,
I think so.
but some people have a horrible voice. I mean, no matter how much work they do,
Right.
their voice is going to be, crack, kind of like yours, Lee. No matter
Oh, yeah,
what.
I'm correct.
Yeah, that's a perfect example.
Don't make me start singing. I'll launch into some Whitney Houston right now.
Please.
But do you think, like,
Please
okay,
no.
I have this feeling that you could learn to draw easier than you could learn to be a good singer, in that you're, like you can't, like like an NBA player. If you're 5 feet tall, you can't just learn to dunk.
Right.
Like, just work on it. I mean, like, there's physical limitations there. Don't you feel like there are fewer physical limitations to drawing?
Yeah, but
than
I
to singing?
think you get a higher mid-level ability. But the truth is, only the higher end people are making a successful life out of it. If we're talking dollar conversions for the work, I think you can go from a bad illustrator to a better illustrator. But can you go from a bad illustrator to a pro?
I've seen that.
I've seen it too, but
I've seen that
it's
a
not
bunch
a
of
ton
times.
of people do it. Really, a bunch?
Yeah,
Like,
I've seen-
a percentage? If you had 10 people in a room that are bad, how many of them can make that jump?
One. But I would say more often than
He's
not.
talking about
it's-
himself.
I am. I actually am. I really am. I was the guy that was led into my illustration program on probation. Me and one other guy out of 20 people. So yeah, I am the 1 in 10.
Dang. Yeah.
Exactly, to the percentage.
Yeah, but
point.
I bet by mid-college it was showing up. I mean, I'm not saying that everybody starts great. I was terrible too. I mean, we all
Yeah.
were.
I was definitely in the second half when everyone else graduated and I didn't.
What
What
was
are
it?
we talking about?
No,
What's
well,
our topic?
Mike Rowe. I want to just.
We're
It reminds me of something Mike Rowe talks about a lot, and that is, instead of following passion, you follow opportunity, but you bring your passion with you. So,
yeah.
so I think what you do is you narrow it down to a direction. So you might be like, well, I want to be a comic book artist, but maybe right now isn't the best time to try to get a job in the comic book industry, because it's so unstable, right? But you have some of the skills required to make a comic. So there's some passion there, but where is the opportunity with those skills? So maybe there's more opportunity in like designing T-shirts, and the same like graphic design sensibility and the bold like drawing sensibility works really good for T-shirts, but not so much in with making comics. And it turns out like you could make $80,000 a year designing T-shirts, but only $30,000 doing comics. And so you have to find where opportunity is, have the skills that match that opportunity, and then bring that passion along with you. Like you could become super passionate about T-shirt design. I've seen that. Like I thought I was passionate about animation, but getting down that road for a while, I realized it wasn't my, like I wasn't wanting to eat, breathe, and sleep like being an animator, but my skill set was such that I could pivot a little bit and do like concept art, and so I went into that. I brought the passion with me. I brought the skill set with me, and I made it something that was, that was really, I made a career out of it. And then the whole time it was like these, just always putting little feelers out and seeing, is there opportunity here? Is there opportunity here? Is there opportunity here? And wherever something was like gaining traction, I would put a little bit more, I guess, passion into that opportunity. So, I bring up comics too, because I always try to make a go at comics, and it always ends up being like, there's something else that I could just do so much better at making more money. So it's always like, well, I'm going to pause on comics and go work on this for a little bit and then go back to it. But if money wasn't an issue, yeah, I mean, would I just be drawing comics all the time? And then if I was drawing comics all the time, surely one of those comics projects would strike a chord and become a thing that would be,
the next
would be
Hellboy.
like, yeah, next Hellboy, the next Smile, or
could
the
someone
next Bone.
could someone be a Mike Mignola today? Can that happen?
Yeah,
Why not?
Why not, Will?
I think they could. I don't know why you won't dare to dream big.
Can I throw a non sequitur in here? This is a little bit off topic, but you're saying that, when you talk to people who have normal careers like HR or bankers or something like that, the one thing that I'm jealous of those people, they
Money.
never go home. No, well, sometimes that. Maybe the stability, but I kind of like the life of being an artist. But the one thing I'm jealous of is that they don't have the constant drive to have to constantly improve. Like, for example, for us, like I can be doing all these like fine art paintings, but in the back of my head, I'm like, man, I got to get better at drawing hands. And then I start drawing hands. I'm like, oh man, I need to get better at color theory. And then, it's like we have this constant pressure on us to be getting better at all things. And the second you lean towards one thing, you're not getting better at the other thing. It's this little bit of a neurosis almost with artists that we can't get good enough at all the things. You know what I mean? And like, I was just thinking about them, like when they go home on a weekend, they're not sitting there thinking, man, I need to get better at banking. They're just done. You know what I mean?
My
They're
spreadsheet game is like, is really hurting.
My spreadsheet
We have this
game.
constant bar that we should be good at, not just one part of art, but all of it. And so you're always, trying to shore up your, the things that you need work on. And I don't know, it's just tough. It doesn't end. And so sometimes I see people who, like, they leave at 5:00 and they're in HR and they just go home and they're like, it's not part of their.
I'm going to disagree with you for a second there. And that is, I think what's going on, because I know people who have those jobs who are always who are passionate about it and who are looking for ways to improve and get better at it and certify themselves in certain things or find, just level up, right? And they're trying to.
So you think they go home on a Friday after work, after their full-time job, and they're thinking about?
No. Here's the difference. when you have one of those, I think one of those types of jobs, maybe you're not so wrapped up with that being in your identity. So
Right.
like they wouldn't say, "Hey, I'm Joe. I'm a banker." They would say, they would say, "I'm Joe. I love surfing, or I love,
Becomes
hiking
about
or
something
something
other
like
than
that."
their job, basically. Yeah,
And
their
then the
identity.
job would come up later. And whereas, one of us introduce ourselves, it's like, "Yeah, I'm Jake. I draw comics. I illustrate." "Oh, well, what do you do for fun?" Let's see, what
Draw
fun?
and illustrate.
I read comics and I watch movies, like everything having to do with it.
Do you guys think in the history of mankind that bankers and lawyers and doctors have ever sat around and pontificated what it's like to be illustrators?
Oh, well, I mean, you look at Michael Crichton, right? Like, here's a doctor who. You also have John Grisham too, who's a lawyer, and both of them decided, well, I want to write stories, and they started writing based off of their expertise. So Grisham writes all law-based, like novels, like thrillers, right? And Crichton uses his background in science to come up with these crazy like situations. He created the show ER, which is very much aligned with what his profession was. But then he's also does stuff like Jurassic Park. So, so I think there's something to be said about going down this path. And Will, you brought up early on, like dreaming big, like don't cut yourself short in the dreams. So I think there's something to be said. If you've chosen the path to be an illustrator and artist, you're already like outside of you're thinking outside the box. You're outside the system. You've already like told everybody, I'm going to go down this crazy path. But then for you to go down, like you're on this crazy path, but then to like tiptoe down it and like not like blaze down it is so weird, because if you made that decision, you might as well try and go all the way, and then see how it goes. And again, like that goes directly against what I said before, like following opportunity versus following passion. I don't know the answer. I don't know what to do. I don't know what's right.
Well, I put this this question out in the forums at SVSLearn.com because I wanted to find out what our students' big dreams were. Mm-hmm. And so a couple of days ago, I put it out there, and I just basically said, if money was not an object, and
you
could
posted
do
that
anything that you want.
I'm looking for it right now. So that's in the forum.
Yes, the title is Podcast Question - 3-point Perspective.
Got it. Okay, cool.
So, Lee, if you spent more time in the forums, just saying.
Hey, go up under reputation for my. I am top of the line.
I said that
Lee's
because
forum.
I knew that you're. No, we had some really good responses. Overall, I want to say that I was disappointed, but I don't want to say but that's the wrong way to say it. And so let me preface it by saying this. I think that in order to dream big for most people, you have to have experience of smaller and medium-sized dreams coming true. So that's a hypothesis I'm going to put forth. That in general, we don't like to dream when we become adults. We don't want to dream big because if we do, we're almost saying if we write it down or if we vocalize it, we're almost saying, well, that's never going to happen for me, right?
You don't. Well, you're hedging. You don't want to. Yeah, you don't want to look the fool, like.
Right.
And I don't know who.
So we keep them to ourselves.
Prove that to. So you tried something and maybe it didn't work, right? Like you don't have to. There's nothing wrong with that.
I mean, most of the responses in the forum, and I want to read some of them because some of them are great, and there's a lot that I would love to read all of them, but obviously we can't. But
there's a lot of responses. It's good.
Yeah, there. Most everyone had the dream of writing and illustrating their own children's book or their own graphic novel, excuse me, or their own comic strip. And I think that is an amazing goal. That's actually still one of my goals. I've written some self-published books that did really well financially as ebooks, but I haven't, I got really close with Scholastic one time where I wrote a book and then they said they were going to buy it. And then we went out and did the celebration dinner and everything. And then 2 weeks later, they decided to pass on it, so I got pretty close. But I think that is a great goal for a children's book illustrator, to move beyond illustrating for someone else. Although that is a dream for other people too, is to be, reading through these comments. That was one of my early on dreams, is just to make money with my art. So do you guys mind if I go ahead and read some of these?
No, go for it. Let's
No,
hear
go
it.
ahead.
Just the awkward pause was like, is he really going to read these?
No.
Here's one from Anna. Great question. I'm very new to all this, unlikely to be famous anytime soon. However, in my ideal world, I'd be writing and illustrating my own books, as well as illustrating other people's books, fame and recognition wise. Not after much, but my dream is one day seeing kids being inspired to choose a character I've created and dress up as that character on a World Book Day. That would be a sign that I've made it. And I think that's awesome. I think, some people are afraid to wish for fame, but I say, why not? Why not wish for that? Because, isn't it cool? Like, you've had people do fan art of your work, haven't you, Jake?
I've had people dress up as characters too. That was super cool. Here's the thing: is like, if you want a certain level of success in your in publishing, there's going to be an element of notoriety and fame that comes along with that. So it's just something that you have to. And I wouldn't say me personally, like, I'm famous in certain circles. I am, but not in like a mainstream sort of. I'm niche famous, not mainstream famous, right? And so there's like this really cool thing, like, oh yeah, like, look at that kid did that. That kid dressed up in a design that I did. Like, I've had kids do Skull Chaser, which doesn't even have a comic really, but they've done Missile Mouse and they've done Awesome Man, both children's books and comic books. And it's a nice high and it's a nice buzz, but that's not enough to like drawing those things takes months to finish and to pour energy into. And so ultimately, like those are just some bonus like boosts, but really what drives me to create is I want to make something cool, and I actually enjoy the process when I get to the end of the day and I look at that thing that I've created. Like there's just satisfaction in that, to the point that I've been creating things without showing anybody. There's some things that I don't show, and it's just for me, right? And I think that's healthy. I think there needs to be a piece of you that isn't for sale, that isn't for anybody else. That's
what I do with realistic painting. I keep that all to myself. I don't show it.
Those self-portrait nudes that you've been doing.
Oh yeah. Well, I show those. Gotta find
don't
the right.
Don't hide
room.
your light under a bushel basket, Reed. Come on, we want to see.
Well, there's a certain risk that comes with fame too.
Now we know the real reason Lee's gallery didn't really happen.
Oh, the mural-sized one is what turned everybody off. No, a risk that comes with notoriety and fame too is that you get, for lack of a better term, pigeonholed. I mean, I know that's happened with even fine artists who think, oh, I can paint whatever I want to. Steve Houston comes to mind. He's a painter, does boxers and all that stuff. He paints other stuff too, but once he got famous for doing the boxers, the second he doesn't do a boxer, people will say, why didn't you paint a boxer? Like that.
Right.
There's an expectation that falls on you that with a certain amount of success, it's hard to get around.
Right. I got to tell you, when I got married this year to a great woman, and her name's Lily, and I told her, she's like, well, when we were dating, I didn't tell her that I was an illustrator or anything. It didn't come up for quite a while. I was like, I do art and stuff. But then, moving down the road, we ended up, after we got married, she's like, I had her convinced that I was just a guy. Because I'm like not recognizable. I'm not famous or anything. I just illustrate books. But because of the podcast and because of my YouTube channel and because of teaching at the university for almost 10 years and I've just been very visible online, there's a lot of people in this particular area that I live in that if I'm at the grocery store or something will recognize me. So, and I'll be in the grocery store and maybe, let's say in a year, maybe I'll get recognized 5 or 6 times, maybe a dozen times. Well, in the first week after we were married and we moved back here, we went on a hike and someone's like, "Are you Will Terry?" And it happened at the grocery store. It happened when we were out on another walk, and it happened like
So
4
people
or 5
that you
times.
didn't know before, they just knew you from.
Right.
Okay.
I got like my whole year's worth all in like the first week or two, and she's looking at me going,
Who is
Who are
this
you?
guy? Lee, you don't get that?
Oh, I do. I've just gotten used to it.
Oh, okay. Just making sure.
"No." It was
The
pretty
worst
funny.
is like the helicopters when they start like just circling your house all the time. Oh man, I can't handle that.
Paparazzi. Put my business in the news.
All right, I'm going to read another one here. I really like this one. This one's from Laurie. "I'm an amateur and planning to retire from my real job in a couple of years, at which point my dream life is to spend all morning at my art desk drinking coffee and painting, and in the afternoons taking long walks through the English countryside. I will produce such incredible illustrations during that art time that publishers will beg me to illustrate professionally, and I will say, 'Thank you for the compliment, but I prefer to remain retired.' After which I will head back out of the countryside with my walking staff and sketchbook. The problem with this dream is that my art skills would have to vastly improve, and I live in New York State, not England." None of that, I'm sure, is what you're looking for, but since you asked, it's exactly what I'm looking for. I want to find, I want people to dare to dream big. And so I wrote down some of the early dreams that I had. And the first one was, I just wanted to make money with my art. I didn't care what kind of art I was making. I just wanted to be able to make enough money to support a family with my art. And that happened. I was doing editorial and advertising art in the beginning, illustration. And all of a sudden I was making money, and it was just amazing. It was like, I have this career. And then I wanted to, make enough money to buy a house, and I bought a house. And then my dream changed to, I want to be able to illustrate a children's book. These one-off illustrations for magazines are cool, but to do a whole book, oh my gosh, would that be a dream? And then that came true. And my first book was Pizza Pat. And, and then that happened over and over and over again. And I think what happens is we get used to setting these goals that are attainable. But I don't think we bother to venture beyond that in our minds and think, well, why not have, 10-year and 20-year and 30-year goals or dreams? And I think goals are different than dreams. I think dreams should be grandiose, because I think if we allow ourselves to dream big, big things can happen. And if we don't, I think we kind of eliminate possibilities from even happening. I think in our minds, we put these false limitations on ourselves, and so, I had the dream after that of illustrating these ebooks and publishing them on my own. And those were huge successes. I had the dream of creating an online art school, and, the
But is
first
that a
one
dream,
that I
or
did.
is that a dream or a goal? I mean, that seems like attainable. Those don't seem like pie in the sky kind of.
Okay, I'm getting there.
All right.
Give me a chance. Anyway, Folio Academy was the first rendition of that. SVSLearn.com, what we're doing now, was a huge dream / goal, but still not, you're right, it was in the realm of attainability. One of the dreams that I did write down about 15 years ago was I wanted to be able to earn enough money with my art that I could afford to take off and exercise 2 to 3 hours a day. Not necessarily exercising the whole time, but go up in the mountains and start to finish the whole trip would take 2 to 3 hours, and not feel like I was sacrificing my earning potential. And that became a reality, where I can have time to go and do a really nice hike or bike ride or snowboard or something like that. I still, like I said, I still have the dream of wanting to write and illustrate my own children's book. And now, the thing with that one is not just to write and illustrate it, but to be able to spend a year working on a book that is the exact book that I want to produce, where I'm not cutting any corners. One of my dreams is to actually create art. Like one of my mentors, one of my art heroes is Polly Bernatene, who lives in Argentina, and is a children's book illustrator. And he creates these 3D sets. So he's created like a little town, and then photographs the town with a camera, and then illustrates digitally and puts his characters in the town, lighting it different ways, manipulating it. That's a style that I've always wanted to work in. I've seen other illustrators do that, and it's just an amazing thing to do. And I've just never felt like I've had enough time to be able to do that. Okay, here's one that you guys probably don't know of. I've always had a dream of opening a restaurant because I love to cook, and I think I'd have something to share. Another big dream of mine, probably the biggest one, is I would love to be able to buy a ranch. I actually have the ranch in mind. It's actually currently owned by the Girl Scouts out here in Utah. So I don't know if I'd be able to. It's called the Trefoil Ranch, and it's nestled in the mountains. The road dead ends into this ranch, so there's no one that's driving by. It's 120 acres. This is a pie in the sky dream, but I would love to be able to buy the place and have artist retreats there and have people come in and teach plein air painting. That's kind of the painting that I've always wanted to do. I have tons of dreams, but that's one that I would love to do, is to have, groups come in for a week at a time, stay in the cabins, learn how to paint, and basically have a party every week with a different group around art. That's my ultimate dream. Will it ever come true?
I was wanting to buy the Boy Scout ranch across the street.
Shut up, Jake.
And do the same thing.
Shut your face.
The restaurant one, out of all those, seems the most like you're idealizing anybody who's worked in a restaurant. Have you worked in a restaurant?
Yeah, I have. And I don't really want to do it, but I want to have enough money to create it and then let someone else run it. So that's part of the dream, is I don't want to run it. I want to create the menu and the atmosphere
and the logo, and then
the logo and the look, and then I want to visit the restaurant because someone else is managing it.
And to be fair, like Will, you've bumped into a person living that dream. Like you're friends with someone who's done that twice now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've watched it happen. Like he's not the chef. Yeah. He's not working at the restaurant every day. But
Dave Tomisto.
Yeah.
Who's created multiple restaurants, is one of my friends, and I just love
you actually
what he's
designed
done.
The logo and some of the artwork for one of them, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was cool.
Yeah. So anyway, but I think it's important to have big dreams, because I think that big things can come true in your life if you're willing to think big. I mean, why do we limit ourselves? I
think there's to answer that question, I think there's just so many factors at play, like not like self-esteem, and that could be problems from how you were raised. It could be problems from, how you were treated at school, and it could be that a teacher, you talk to these people who are successful, and we have a lot of this success bias, right? And they'll say, well, is that one teacher that told me I could be, I could really be a writer, and here I am today because that teacher believed in me. And I saw an Onion article where there's this unsuccessful writer who every day, like he's just struggling and can't even pay rent. And every day he curses the teacher that said to him he could be a writer.
That's I don't think you got to dream. Oh, sorry, Jake. I didn't want to cut you off. To you.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, so the dreaming big part is the part I have almost a problem with, because I think when people dream too big, they start to over idealize, and then they also don't think about. I think ego starts to play in when people dream big. They think, not only will I be, a good artist, but I'll also be famous, and people will want to, hang out with me, and they'll ask for my autograph. There's a level of ego that's associated with dreaming that big. Not that you shouldn't have, those fun flights of, fantasy too, but practical dreams and kind of looking around and saying, okay, what would make me happy? I'd rather people start there. Like, what kind of person am I, and what makes me happy? I mean, I'm in the middle of a career change, so I've actually just started doing this. I'm chasing a quote-unquote dream. But I got to the point where, that's with my gallery, which I've talked about a little bit on this podcast. But I had to ask myself, like, what part of all this do I enjoy, and what part do I not like, and how do I address those? And that led me to the path, just asking those really almost practical questions. One of the things that I really like happened because of SVS. Like, I love interacting with you guys. I like being around people, and I like groups of people doing things, and I always have. And on the opposite side of that, being at home and illustrating all day, which seems like a dream for a lot of people, that part is hard for me when I'm just in isolation, especially when I'm in the middle of a book. And, you got 40 more illustrations to do, and you're just, pounding away 8-10 hours a day, 12 hours a day. I'm faster now, so I don't spend that much time on them. But, that part I never really loved, just sort of the self-inflicted isolation, I guess, of being a publishing artist. That's one drawback to me. And I started to ask myself, like, when am I happiest making the artwork? And that typically it's just, I come up with an idea. I don't necessarily... It doesn't have to make sense. I don't have to run it through a bunch of people to approve it. I just come up with something and I paint it, and either people like it or they don't. And so that's what I started selling at the art fairs, and people responded well enough, and I'd enjoy that. So here's the artwork, buy it or don't buy it, but whatever. And so through all the asking those questions, what I like, what I don't like, then I came up with the idea of a group, a co-op gallery where there's more than just me. I don't want to just open a gallery by myself, because then I'm in the same boat. I'm just responsible for all of it just by myself. So a co-op where there's a lot of people that are all striving for the same goal. We each help each other and limit the risk and lean into the rewards.
I got to push back a little bit on your fame thing.
Okay.
I think you're right in that wanting. I think there's a difference between wanting to be famous and wanting to be known for the thing that you do. So in other words, like if my goal is I want to be the best artist I can possibly be, and I hope that also brings fame, I think that's a healthier goal than to just want people to worship you for whatever and think that magically your artwork's going to be great. You know what I mean? Like because I agree with you that some people just want fame and fortune, but they don't want to do the work to get there. Right. I think it's implied in this discussion that it's like you gotta. I mean, that's what our whole school is about is teaching people to get better at their art. To get really good, and we don't sugarcoat how long it takes and how much dedication it takes and how much hard work it takes. But I think it's good to dream big, because I think it opens doors. I'm a big believer in the idea that was brought out in the film, The Secret. That if you put something out into the universe,
I do agree with that.
It can come back to you, but you have to kind of vocalize it, and you have to kind of want it, and you kind of have to be thinking about it, and then little by little, that's what I've noticed is that I've put these things out there, and they just start happening. They just start coming true, and I look back at my life and I'm like, holy cow, I remember what it was like to just want to get paid to do some artwork. And then that happened. And I remember what it was like to want to be able to make enough to to pay the bills. And then that happened. And then I remember what it was like to hopefully one day get to illustrate a whole book,
Well, when you start moving in a direction, things do start happening
yeah.
towards that direction. It's kind of uncanny almost how much that happens. Once you make a decision and say, okay, I'm going to do this thing,
Mm-hmm.
it's crazy how much things, I mean, like I said, even with this gallery, well, the space comes available that's a perfect spot for that'll accommodate all these people. And then people started signing up for the spaces. And you know what I mean? Everything just started sort of working itself
Yeah.
out. Same.
And I think your enthusiasm is a big reason why people jumped in. It's why I jumped in. Because I already knew you, but I also know that you don't do anything halfway. And so,
I didn't fall for that enthusiasm.
That's why Jake's going to miss out and not be famous.
But I think we sell ourselves based on those dreams that we have. When you if you were to pitch something, if you were to pitch something, if you had pitched that gallery to me, you said, hey, well, I kind of had this idea, of just kind of making this gallery thing. And if you want, you can throw in, I'd have been like, nah. But it was the way you were like, oh man, you would be crazy not to do this. Here's what I'm going to do. And you just lay everything out. And here's pictures. And I got the perfect space. And you
so
just kept
excited about it.
You're so excited.
That's
I'm like,
true. I do not have a poker face when I'm excited about something.
well, and that's how I hope that's how I came across to Jake when we did our first class for SVS. I was really pumped. I was really excited, and I knew we could do something really fun and really good, valuable together. And yeah.
So I made a plan. I think I figured it out. Listening to everything, I like this episode because it really is just 3 artists hanging out talking. It's like there's no structure or anything. But here I am trying to force some structure onto it, I guess. But
there's a list coming.
Based on what we've talked about, I think this is coming away from this episode. If you want some direction, maybe this is what you do. Number 1, dream big. Here's my list. No, number 1, dream big, but that dream needs to be grounded in what you actually want to do day to day. Like what does your day-to-day activity look like? So when you say I want to be a famous artist, that is the result. That's not your dream, because you don't necessarily want what is going to make you be a famous artist, right?
Right.
So figure out what
the cart before the horse.
Right. So figure out what your big dream is based on, I would love to spend my day doing X, Y, and Z, right? And then I think the next step is you create systems that, by nature of you doing them every day for years, your dream is a byproduct of that, right? So if it's like, hey, I want to, I really do want to be a comic book artist. What do comic book artists do? They make comics. And I guarantee if you spend 10 years making comics, like consistently, and you put out, basically you could do 100 pages a year or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Then you'll have a lot of comics.
You'll have a lot of comics, and someone somewhere is going to eventually pay you for it, whether it's a fan base that you've created out of yourself or it's a publisher or something like that, right? So then you have your system in place, you have your dream in place, but then I think the last component there is you keep your eyes, keep your heart open to opportunity as well, and don't feel like you're betraying yourself if you follow an opportunity that aligns with your abilities, but it isn't necessarily the initial dream that you had. Does that make sense?
I like it.
I like it too.
So that's what I would do.
Hey, I want to read one more comment on here. If we're thinking about wrapping, do you have anything else, Lee?
No, I'd like to hear the quote.
Okay, I want to wrap with this one. This one was from Josh. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the second paragraph, he says, I think I'd like my kids to look at what I do and feel like they can do anything they want in life. I don't want them to feel like the path is narrow. I want them to feel like they have creative rights to live their own lives. More than that, I want to be good at it. I want to deliver great products and make people happy and get paid well for it. I think that is a great place to be, to make great things that will make other people happy, that will inspire my kids to realize that they can do anything. I think that is a really great dream. And that is focusing on, like what you said, Jake, that's focusing on the, how did you put it?
The opportunity? What do you mean?
Focusing on doing the thing rather than on the results.
Oh, right. Yeah,
You know?
yeah. It's focusing on the systems that are going to lead you to.
That's right.
To it.
The behaviors. Then that includes, it should include eating well, getting enough sleep, exercise, discipline. If you're Jake, writing these insane lists of things to do and keeping track and checking them off. And, I think I've mentioned this before, but there's like, I saw this list one time in an article that said there are 6 things that are common to almost all millionaires. And one of them is keeping regular lists and crossing off items on that list. I keep mine on my phone. You write yours down because you like to frame them and revisit them years later and see how beautiful they are.
The more time I could spend away from my phone, the better for my mental health. So
I'm just not that far evolved yet. I'll get there someday.
I started keeping my phone in the drawer for that reason. It is amazing how much better your life is without it.
So that's why you never answer texts.
It's true. It's true. I'm off the grid, baby.
But when you do get on the text thread, you don't stop.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, how come you guys aren't on the text thread right now?
That's the old me. That was before I put it in the drawer. Now I'll just text you a namaste, and I'll get back to you in a couple of
That's hilarious.
Dare to dream big.
I like it. Let's wrap this up. Just want to thank everybody for joining us. This podcast, 3-Point Perspective, is made possible by SVSLearn.com. Where becoming a great illustrator starts. And your hosts today have been Will Terry, Lee White, and Jake Parker. And if you want to find us online, best place to look would be at our websites. Will Terry's is willterry.com. Lee White's is leewhiteillustration.com. And mine is mrjakeparker.com. And then if you are on social media, our social media platform of choice is Instagram because it's visual based, I would assume. That's why we like it. Will Terry on Instagram is Will Terry Art. Lee White is Lee White Illo, and I'm just simply Jake Parker. Podcast is produced by Aaron Painter. You can find his work at painterdraws.com. Podcast edited by Alex Sugg. You can find his work at alexsugg.com, and Sugg is spelled with 2 G's, so it's Sugg. Podcast video edited by Daniel 2. You could watch our podcasts on YouTube as well. It's a good way to check it out. Actually see our beautiful shining faces while we talk. In reality, watch me stare off the side of the screen working on something while we talk. Anyways, Daniel 2's our video editor, and you can find his work at daniel2.co, and 2 is spelled TU. And lastly, our social media specialist and podcast sharer is Lisa Fott, and special thanks to her for that. If you like this episode, share it around. Podcasts live and die by word of mouth, so please tell people about it. We would love that. And if you're wanting to join in on this specific discussion, go to our forums at svslearn.com. Just click on the forum button at the top of the website and join in. There should be a thread there all about this particular subject that we've talked about, and we'd love to have you pipe in over there and let us know what you think. That's it. We hope to see you guys next time. Bye.